Okay, so now for one of my favorite class sessions where we're going to be discussing promoting resilience. We've spent this mini term looking at all of the different types of trauma that children can experience that affects their coping and contributes to their coping if they've experienced these different types of traumas when they present to us in the hospital environment, and what our children are facing, so that we can have a better understanding of how we as child life specialists can provide support, be that advocate for them, and intercede on their behalf. So now we're going to be looking at promoting resilience. What can we do as child life specialists when we encounter a child in our setting to be supportive, to be understanding, sympathetic, to help empower that child, to contribute hopefully to their healing and to their moving forward from the obstacles that they've experienced? How can we promote those protective factors and decrease the impact of those risk factors, and really do what we can to contribute to hopefully that child moving towards positive outcomes? Our work is very important. If you haven't ever felt that way before, I hope that you do after this conversation. We know for hospitalized children is incredibly important to help them process their experiences, to help them in regaining some of that sense of control and mastery over an environment where so much of their control is taken away from them. We use play because we understand that it's the way that they communicate, and that there are times where they may communicate different things to us through their play that they wouldn't otherwise, and that they, if they're unable to communicate something verbally, have an opportunity to use their play to communicate non-verbally what their experiences have been and what they're comfortable in sharing. And we also know that we use play to assess their coping with their experiences. And so we know that play really is a foundation of the work that we do. Play is a developmentally appropriate way for us to interact with the child, to meet them where they're at, meet them at their level, and to gain insight into the inner workings of the child. It provides a natural avenue for establishing that therapeutic relationship. So we use it to develop rapport, to build on that rapport so that we can be effective in our work as child life specialists. It enables us and is a way by which we communicate with the child and a way by which we problem solve together. It also allows us opportunities to reinforce ways of relating and problem solving, and helps the child to rehearse and to practice problem solving techniques as well as coping strategies. It's also a way to expand on the child's repertoire of coping skills. And so again, if we've identified ways that the child is coping that are unhealthy, that are maladaptive, we can use play, and in play introduce different coping strategies, give the child the opportunity to rehearse those coping strategies so that they can then use those strategies throughout their lifetime. It also gives them an opportunity to interact with others. So growing on those social support systems that are so important for them when they've experienced a trauma, to help them to learn that the world isn't a dangerous place, and not everyone is going to hurt him or her. And so giving them an opportunity to interact with their peers, to see that there are people that genuinely care about them, that are invested in them, that want to see them succeed, help them to identify their strengths so that they can see that they have worth and value and that they can contribute. It has an opportunity to then foster friendships, promote intimacy and partnerships, and to contribute in their overall resilience and well-being. It also provides an opportunity for them to have a new perspective of themselves. If they've been told that they're worthless and that they have no value, have an opportunity to engage in play, to identify their skills and their strengths, to see what they can do and what they can achieve. This really is the heart of resilience as a therapeutic power of play. And so we, as child life specialists, already know that play is important. When a child has experienced a trauma or a traumatic event, it's even more so. Resilience research shows that a comprehensive and coordinated approach to working with children and families really helps them to overcome the adversity that they faced. The research also provides a coordinated approach to working with children and families and overcoming their experiences by having therapeutic interventions with play as the base, and that are supportive of developing those attachment relationships, and those relationships enhancing those relationships amongst family members. And I apologize for the typo. Resilience research helps us to identify the child's strengths, the resources that are available to him or her, and the ability to reinforce the child's ability to cope and be prepared for whatever they're to tackle next. So we know that resilience is a therapeutic power of play. It is a benefit of play for the child. And so we want to, as Child Life, provide therapeutic interventions that have resilience at its core, that again identify the strengths of the child and are used to really empower the child, to give them opportunities for control, to regain some of the control that's been taken away by the trauma that they've experienced, to give them an opportunity to work through their feelings and work through their experience so that they can identify that I can overcome, I'm brave, I've been through this, and even though this has happened to me or I've experienced this, I still have some control and power to change what's going to happen next. So giving them an opportunity to engage in play that reduces anxiety and increases problem solving, that reduces self-blame and reduces blaming by others, that provides opportunity for them to interact with others to reduce social isolation, that helps them to develop attachment to other caregivers or to non-perpetrating family members to enhance that attachment. Again, because we understand its importance in social emotional development and the way that it has the potential to impact the child's lifespan, across the lifespan, as they're working on academics and academic achievement, as they're learning how to interact with others and they're obtaining employment and working towards keeping jobs. That this social emotional piece is key, that we're doing what we can to use play in a way that the child has an opportunity to increase self-esteem and to see that they are efficient, that they are capable, that they have value, that they can contribute, and that they are loved and cared for. That we use play to increase the child's ability to develop creative problem-solving techniques and skills, and that we're doing what we can to enhance and to support nurturing relationships in the playroom and in the child's lives, because we understand that if we're providing play interventions that include family members and include siblings, while we may have a very short period of time of interaction with that child in play, those skills are still going to translate and be transferable, and we can suggest activities that the family can do at home to enhance those relationships beyond the playroom. We want to do what we can to give the child the opportunity to make sense of what they've experienced. Obviously, there are some times where we're not going to be able to really understand why something has happened the way that it has, but we can help the child to make meaning of their experiences and have the potential to change or to influence their outlook moving forward. And so we understand that play reduces anxiety and increases problem solving. It's a means to express their anxiety. It also gives them an opportunity to brainstorm ideas for how to solve different problems that they're facing, different experiences or challenges that they're facing. It gives them an opportunity to make sense of what's happening and to prepare themselves for what's to come. It also, again, that paradigm of play, that play is comfort. During times of anxiety and challenge, children revert back to what's comfortable and what's comforting. And so we know that play is soothing. It's also very cathartic. We think about the cathartic properties of play. Play is a means of discharging feelings in a socially appropriate way. And so we want to do what we can to provide that opportunity for them. It also is a blame reducer. It's effective in helping children to reduce the self-blame that goes along with complex and persistent problems. The abuse that they've experienced, the trauma that they've experienced, it's not their fault. And we can explore these topics and these feelings through play and help them to know that they have done the best that they could, that they're just 5 or 6 or they're just 7 and 8, and that what's happened they had no control over what happened to them, and that the adults in the environment are the ones responsible for the things that have happened. And so helping them to reduce those feelings of self-blame. This can be very challenging for children that have been parentified. They may not readily respond to the facilitator, the play facilitator's offer of nurturing interaction. because of what they have experienced and the responsibility that they feel because they've been parentified. And so it's not uncommon for children that have been parentified to try to become the co-facilitator if there are other children who are present, because they've been put in that capacity before. And so it can be uncomfortable for them at first to have an opportunity to be in a role of just being a child. However, there are also those children that clamor and that run to that opportunity because of what they've experienced. So you can have two types of children on that, two sides of that spectrum, depending on the child that you're working with. And so others, as I mentioned, may eagerly engage in play and will be readily accepting of nurturing invitations because they're relieved to be able to take a break from their responsible roles, the expectations of the adults in their environment to be responsible for others or responsible for the parent. Reducing blame by others. We can use play by really providing opportunities for the child. A child's self-blame is often interpersonally reinforced through blame by others, where the child may feel as though what they've done or somehow something that they've done has caused what's happened to them to happen. And unfortunately, because others are also unfortunately unhealthy in their thinking, if there's a pattern, an intergenerational pattern, or if you have other family members that have the same faulty thinking, they may also reinforce that child's feeling of self-blame or can blame the child for what's happened, when we know that nothing that the child has done has caused this, that it's not the child's fault that these domestic violence situations have happened, or that these physical abuse or sexual abuse situations have happened, that it's the adult's fault for these things taking place. And so unfortunately, there can still be some dysfunction amongst the family where there is that blame on the child, and we really need to create play opportunities to show the child appropriate boundaries and to show the child, the difference between an adult and a child and the responsibilities that are appropriate to have for children and what responsibilities are really intended for adults. So having the opportunity for them to explore some of these topics through their play. Sometimes others, as I mentioned, have had their own exaggerated sense of what a child can or should be responsible for. And so we as child life specialists have the opportunity, by observing the child's play, have an opportunity to become aware of different family patterns of scapegoating particular children, so that we can explore that, intervene, and talk with our social workers, talk with our hospital psychiatrists and psychologists to see what additional supports are needed and what more intensive services are available to connect the child to. And so we as child life specialists, using a collaborative, non-judgmental, strengths-based approach, can start the disruption of these particular patterns of blame for the child. Through play, children have the opportunity, again, to rehearse ways of being more assertive in addressing the criticism from others. So there are some children's books on Amazon that you can actually look at that talk about helping children to establish healthy patterns. The ones that are associated with personal space, there's actually one called Personal Space Camp to help the child that really is having a difficult time in identifying appropriate boundaries and establishing those boundaries. And then there are also books about saying no to touches that the child doesn't like, or saying no because it's my body. So helping the child feel a sense of empowerment and not owning what doesn't belong to them. We also want to provide play to help the child in reducing isolation and do what we can to create opportunities for enhancing attachment. And so we understand that when a child has experienced trauma, it has the potential to influence the way that they view the world and view others. And depending on their experiences, that certain experiences of physical abuse and neglect and sexual abuse and psychological maltreatment can hinder the development of healthy attachment and can hinder secure attachment. And so we, through play, when we're working with a child and with a family, with non-perpetrating family members or foster care placements, we can do what we can to really provide interventions that recognize the importance of those relationships and do what they can to support and promote those relationships. So it might be a legacy project where you've got a canvas, and where family members each have a different color of paint, and where they create a family tree, and each family member's thumbprint is a different leaf. And so doing what we can to really foster relationships within the family so that they can support one another and work through challenges that they're facing together to overcome those challenges, to be resilient. And so with this, through play, again, children can begin to give us different clues regarding their attachment injuries so that we can provide support and do what we can to provide interventions that enhance appropriate relationships and that are supportive of attachment with non-perpetrating family members and with supportive adults in the child's environment. We want to understand that some children may be difficult to engage at first, and again, that they're working to rebuild some sense of trust in the world because of the things that they've experienced. And then other children may be engaged to the point of being smothering or controlling because they've been parentified or because they've never been given the opportunity to have control before. And so we just want to, again, do what we can to establish some balance so that all of the children involved in the interaction have the opportunity to get out of the experience what they need. Resilience really is built through giving children opportunities to self-regulate through play processes so that we can help them to connect more effectively with their support systems, individuals in their environment, identifying who their support systems are, and to help them in developing new strategies for coping. We want to play and give them opportunities to identify their strengths so that they can see what they're good at, and we can recognize and emphasize those and build on those, because negative chain reactions of different risk factors can be addressed through positive chain reactions of enhancing protective factors and helping the child to develop a sense of self-esteem and self-efficacy. I am good at something. I do have something that I can contribute. I can help someone else. I'm good at this. I do have worth. I do have value, and I have something that I can share. So this play then helps the child to identify their islands of competence. These are the things that you're really good at and that you've mastered, and you should be really proud of that. And I really like the way that you helped your classmate when they were struggling, or when you helped your little sister with this because you saw that she was having a hard time. And so you're really good at being aware of how to help other people. So helping them to identify those aspects of the self that are positive. We want to also increase opportunities for creative play, so providing more opportunities for creative play, because once children begin to experience some success, the next challenge is then to support them into sustaining these different changes and these successes. And so we want to provide play that will help them to become resourceful, that will bring them comfort, that will instill hope. Again, another paradigm of play, play as hope. And so we want to do what we can to instill hope and provide opportunities for hope, give them opportunities for dramatic play that lets them be creative and lets them go where their imagination needs to take them, and lets them see what's possible and lets them dream so that they can have that feeling of hope instilled. So we should then see this theme that shifts from a focus on reflecting on what they've previously experienced or the presenting problems to rehearsing possible solutions, identifying their personal strengths again and their support systems. And so we want to do what we can to support them, come from that strengths-based perspective rather than that deficit perspective. And then we understand that play can help them to make meaning of their experiences and can help them in creating an outlook for the future and what's to come. And so engaging in play that gives them an opportunity to make sense of the world and what they've experienced helps to move the child from their very private starting point and facing the adversity that they've experienced to more public transitions to look beyond, where they've been to where they're headed. And so looking at that, the potential for the future with reduced risk factors and enhanced protective factors, the child can then face the world with a greater sense of confidence. I can do this. I've overcome this. I am brave. I am strong. and what's happened doesn't define me. So clearly identifying their strengths and doing what we can to help them to develop connections with others and to develop stronger bonds with others are all going to contribute to their development of resilience and to increasing that resiliency. So resilient children then, they feel loved and respected. And so we want to create a space where we model that for them, where they see that in the interactions that they're having with others, that include having learned to set realistic goals and expectations. And so we want to provide opportunities in our play for the child to be able to say, this is what I want to accomplish. And we set guidelines and rules for, okay, these are the guidelines for our interactions and how we're going to get there. And so the child that's resilient has had the ability to learn how to set those realistic goals and expectations. They're also able to define the aspects of their lives over which they have had control and to focus their energy and attention to those particular aspects. We can't change the past. And what's happened was outside of your control. What do we have control of? What do you have control of? And how can we focus on those and do what we can to continue to build on those? So we want the child to believe that they have the ability to solve problems, and we want to encourage them to take credit for their successes and achievements. Look at what a good job you did and how you really handled when this situation happened. So we want them to be able to say, you know, I'm proud of myself, or I did a good job here. So giving them an opportunity to take realistic credit, and also encouraging them to show themselves grace. So viewing mistakes and setbacks and obstacles as challenges to confront and to master. And giving them an opportunity to say, you know what, not every day is going to be perfect, and I'm not perfect, and that's okay. There are things that I'm good at, and there are things that I need to grow in. And so helping them to recognize and to accept their vulnerabilities and their weaknesses, but also conversely helping them to recognize and enjoy and use and build upon their strengths. We want them to know that there are people in their environment that care deeply about them, that want to see them succeed, and that not all relationships are going to be like some of these others that they've experienced. We want them to feel comfortable with coming to, you know, adults and to peers to express their thoughts and their feelings, to know that they'll be supported and that they'll be cared for. And we want them to know that they can make a positive difference in the lives of others, because they do have value and they do have worth and they do have something that they can contribute. When we're talking about the treatment of trauma, again, it's very complex. There are many different aspects, many different factors to consider, and a lot of it pertains to the different types of trauma that an individual can experience and the modalities that are most beneficial to use and supporting and helping that individual to overcome those obstacles and those challenges. And so it's really identification and acknowledgement of the traumatic stressor. It's also providing that opportunity of expression of thoughts and feelings about that particular event. It's opportunity to regain mastery and control, and an opportunity for them to release, to discharge, release, or to work through that usual freeze, flight, fight response. And then giving them an opportunity to write their stories. This is what I've been through, but this is what my future is going to look like. And it's their story to write. And then helping them to move forward from, from the obstacle, from what they've experienced. So having a disengagement from their trauma. And some of the fundamental aspects, now again, we want to make sure that we're staying within our scope of practice as child life. And so there are some traumas that are need and require more intensive services than what we provide as child life. And so we do want to be aware of that, make sure that we're staying within our scope of practice and that we're not misrepresenting ourselves or misidentifying our skill set. And so, it's identifying, okay, is this within what I'm able to provide? Is this psychosocial? Is this developmental? Is this emotional? Is this psychological, to where psychiatrists, psychologists would be more equipped to be able to, or better equipped to be able to support this child and making those connections and talking with our doctors and nursing staff members to see if they're seeing what we are and seeing what their recommendations are too. Some of the fundamental aspects of post-traumatic play include that it is instinctive to children. Again, they revert back to what's comforting and what instills hope and what they know when they've experienced something challenging. And so they revert back to play because it brings that comfort and that catharsis, that release. Children will often initiate and manage post-traumatic play on their own, and they'll engage in post-traumatic play when provided with symbols of their traumatic experiences. And I can share an example of this with you. When I was working in one particular hospital, I had a family that presented to the hospital after a car accident. They were traveling to a family in another state, and so there were actually two families in the van. They were extended families. So it was a mom and her sister. They were twins. And so it was a mom and the sister and all of their children. And they were driving and had a motor vehicle accident. And some of the children were thrown from the car. And there were various types of injuries and stages of injuries. And multiple children were brought to the hospital. Some were in medically induced comas. Some had a couple of scrapes and bruises, again, varying degrees. And I had one of the little boys in the playroom, and I had a Fisher-Price ambulance and fire truck and doctors and, the little people that go with them. And I had it on the shelf, and I was in the playroom with this child, and he just went over and got the bin of toys, and he brought all of the pieces out on the table, and he started crashing the ambulance and the fire truck together. And so he was engaging in post-traumatic play with these materials that were a part of his experience, and just trying to work through and come to terms with what he had experienced. And so it's really the child's invention, and gives them that opportunity to express themselves, to make sense of what their experience has been, and then to overcome that experience and to move forward. And so it's often that it happens when there's an individual that can support the child through the process because of the emotions associated with it, the intensity of the emotions associated with it. And so it usually does occur with the presence of an unconditional witness, someone who could hold the child's experience without that judgment, who doesn't look away, and that is willing to be there to listen, to observe, and provide that support to the child. And so that unconditional witness also provides that companionship that that child needs at that moment. So they're giving us an opportunity to have insight into their inner workings and their personal experiences by allowing us to be a part of this process and a part of this play. Some of the therapeutic approaches to post-traumatic play include giving them, again, the opportunity to express themselves and to process their event, to understand that not all of their expression is going to be verbal. And so we're also going to be looking at what toy materials they choose and then how they use those materials, because they're not always necessarily going to verbalize their thoughts and their feelings and their experience. It's going to oftentimes be manifested in their play. Spontaneous verbalization of traumatic memories can often accompany the play of traumatized children, and we want to do what we can to understand that the child really does need control and mastery in this instance over their experience. And so it's beneficial to lead with child-centered play, so play where the child takes the lead, but there may be times where you need to alternate between directive and non-directive play, depending on the circumstances. So times where you let the child take the lead, and other times where you are the support that's facilitating the play if there is an issue that needs to be addressed. There are differences between what's dynamic post-traumatic play and what's toxic, so what's helpful for the child and what's actually harmful. Post-traumatic play is really one of the best indicators that resilience exists in the child, that they're attempting to overcome their obstacle and their experience. It gives them the opportunity to face and conquer their fears so that they can then achieve mastery. So when this takes place, when this happens, then it's helpful and it's dynamic play. However, it becomes toxic when the child engages in the same play over and over and over again, and where it's happening very rigidly, and where it's happening in a particular sequence over and over again, and when there's no difference in the child's affect or in the outcome of the play. Okay, and we can tell this when the child is just going through the process, going through the motions, there's no change, again, that flat affect. So this occurs when the play does not provide a cushion of safety for the child and when the child is being re-traumatized. So it's placing the child back in the original situation, physiologically, emotionally, and psychologically. So in that case, it would be toxic and it would be harmful. And so we want to do what we can to give opportunities for the child to conquer their fears so that they can achieve mastery. And if we see changes taking place, then we know that that's happening and it's helpful. When it's not, we know it's harmful and it's toxic. So toxic post-traumatic play persists as repetitive, non-interactional play, so they're not interacting with others, and where there's no changes in the process that the child is going through while engaged in that play, and where there's no contact with other individuals. Dynamic play progresses when there's interaction, when it's working towards its intended goals of restoring and providing that child an opportunity to control and to master and to overcome their experience. Do you have any questions? And these are all opportunities that you're going to have as child life to be able to support children in these variety of ways with the different stresses and toxic traumatic experiences that they've experienced. You're going to have the opportunity to identify needs, to assess needs, and to tailor your therapeutic interventions appropriately to best meet their needs and support them emotionally and psychosocially and developmentally. And you're also going to be in a position to be able to connect them with community resources to continue to address their needs and to provide that more intensive support. And so it's an incredible position to be in, to be able to support children and families in this way. And it's an incredible honor to be able to support them in this way. And so I would encourage you, just to think about the potential and the opportunities that you'll have to really be the hands and the feet of Christ and to go and to serve and to minister to the hearts of families during incredibly challenging times, and to be able to pray for families, even if it's not always outwardly, depending on the setting that you're in and the policies and procedures in place, but even if it's internally, to still have that opportunity to pray and to pray over that family and to pray for discernment on how to handle situations, and to ask that the Holy Spirit guides your steps and your words and gives you the words that would be of most encouragement to that family is an incredible privilege. If you do have any questions regarding any of the content of the PowerPoints of the class discussions, please don't hesitate to let me know. I do hope that our paths cross again, and if I can be a resource to you, again, please don't hesitate to reach out. It's been a privilege and a pleasure having you in this class, and I look forward to opportunities to talk more. Have a great bit of a break in between mini terms, and I look forward to our next class together.